together, that communication won't happen. So let's go to this aspect of reading. Why is reading important? Well, do you know that we have 36 million adults in the United States today who struggle with literacy? You know that we have about 15 million children under the age of 18 who also struggle with literacy. Do you know that if you have a family history of learning problems, you have a greater chance of having learning problems as well? We now know today that if you enter school with a higher risk, you're going to struggle more. We know that if you don't read on grade level by 4th grade, 40% of those children are going to be on welfare at some point in time. We know that there's data that says, when you look at the juvenile justice system, and we ask about the children in that system, what percentage of those children have history of learning disabilities? It's approximately 80%. We look at the high school dropout population. What percentage of high school students who drop out of high school have learning disabilities? It's about 80%. When we look at the prison, and we say individuals who've made some poor choices, ended up breaking some laws, and now in our prison system, and we're spending tens of thousands of dollars per year to house them in these prisons. What's the incidence of learning disabilities? It's anywhere from 50 to 80%. But here's the most alarming statistic. Our #1 killer of teenagers is suicide. And when they leave notes, and somebody analyzes the actual notes that they wrote as a suicide note, 80% of those suicide notes are full of spelling mistakes. So maybe that was just an added pressure that they didn't need. So what if somebody studied how reading works, and we understand that you have to be able to sound out words? What if we understand that you actually also have to be able to memorize words? That's part of our reading skills. What if we know the other skill you have to have is be able to understand the vocabulary of what you're reading? What if scientists understood that when that happens, you actually are more likely to read fluently, with more ease, less difficulty? And when that's happening, what if we have science that tells us you're more likely to actually understand the information that you're reading? Would that begin to challenge your idea of what dyslexia and learning disabilities are? But our key piece is knowing that we have to first be able to sound out those words. So what if science helped us understand that different parts of the brain do different things? Some parts are actually involved in speech skills, some parts are involved in auditory processing skills, some are in listening and learning skills. But what if we actually knew even more than that? What if somebody actually studied that the brain is actually a big network, and the activities you do are what we call experience-based plasticity? It means if I give you the practice, you begin to build these networks. That's where the skills come from. That's what learning really is. And we understood that there's networks for syntax or word order. There's networks for semantics, for vocabulary. There's networks for the sound structure of our language. And these networks need to develop to build these skills. And it happens actually in a hierarchy. What if somebody actually had studied that phonology, because hopefully you're talking to the child as soon as they're born, and you're giving them some language exposure, phonology is one of our earliest developing systems. Shortly thereafter is semantics. Shortly after that is syntax, word orders. Later on comes reading and spelling. There's not one language in the world that you read and spell it first and speak it later. Language starts with speech first, and if you're weak at these foundational skills down here, you're at risk for struggling with these higher level skills up here. And then we have the last set of skills, those writing and those metalinguistic skills. What if we actually understood how this model worked? Would that change your view of what dyslexia is and the idea that we actually might be able to do more about it?
Okay, so